Hello and welcome back to the Scottish English podcast, where I bring you the history, culture and voices of Scotland while helping you along your English learning journey. This October, in honour of Black History Month in the UK, I'm devoting a special series of episodes to the stories of Black Scots, stories that are often missed from the mainstream history books, but are absolutely vital if we want to understand Scotland's past, present and future. And while I'm not a Black Scot, I want to support the sharing of their stories. I also encourage you to seek out Black Scottish creators as well. There are plenty out there doing great work. And as always, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Or if you're a big fan, consider supporting the show's creation by leaving a tip or becoming a member. I've added more about that in the description. Today we start with Scotland's Black Pioneers. We'll explore the extraordinary lives of Black Scots from the 18th century through to the modern day. People who shaped our literature, our sport and our justice system. Many of them were firsts in their field. The first Black doctor or the first Black professional footballer in Scotland. They faced prejudice, but they also carved out spaces of recognition, often against impossible odds. So let's step into their stories. Early stories of Black lives in Scotland. It might surprise you to know that Black people have been living in Scotland for centuries. Records show African individuals in Scottish towns as far back as the 16th century, often arriving through seafaring or the early networks of empire. One of the most famous early figures is Joseph Knight. Knight was kidnapped from Africa and enslaved in Jamaica before being taken to Scotland in the 1760s by a wealthy Scottish plantation owner named John Wedderburn. But Knight's story does not end there. He fought back, not with weapons but with the law. In 1778, Knight brought a case before the Scottish courts, demanding his freedom. And he won. The court ruled that slavery was not recognised in Scots law, and therefore Knight could not be kept as a slave on Scottish soil. Now, let's pause on what that meant. It didn't abolish slavery across the empire, but it was a powerful declaration. In Scotland, the law would not support enslavement. Joseph Knight's case is still taught as one of Scotland's landmark legal moments, and his courage set a precedent for freedom. Scholars and writers. Another pioneer was James McCune Smith. Born in New York in 1813, James was incredibly bright. But because of racism, American universities refused to admit him as a medical student. So he travelled across the Atlantic straight to Scotland. He studied at the University of Glasgow and in 1837 became the first African American ever to receive a medical degree. Now imagine him, a young Black man walking the cobbled streets of Glasgow studying Latin, philosophy, chemistry and medicine. Not only did he qualify as a doctor, but he became a leading intellectual and activist. Although he later returned to America, James McCune Smith's Scottish education armed him for a life of abolitionism and reform. His legacy is still honoured at Glasgow University today. And of course, Scotland's national poet Robert Burns himself wrote admiringly about the abolitionist cause. But it is striking how rarely the voices of Black Scots themselves were preserved. Pioneers in sport and music. If we fast forward to the 20th century, voices and pioneers become much more visible. In sport, we have Andrew Watson, a name that deserves far more attention than it has. Watson was born in Guyana but moved to Scotland as a young man in the 1870s. He became the world's first Black international footballer when he captained the Scottish national team against England in 1881. Not just a player, but the captain. He was admired for his elegance on the pitch, yet for decades his story was nearly forgotten. Today, campaigns are underway to celebrate him with memorials and fuller recognition in Scottish football, including a mural of him in Shawlands, Glasgow. And in music, Scottish culture has been enriched by artists of African and Caribbean descent who brought reggae, calypso and later hip-hop and soul into Scotland's sounds. This continues in the 21st century with award-winning bands like Young Fathers, who proudly identify as Black Scots and push boundaries of what Scottish music can sound like. Why these stories matter. So why tell these stories? Because history is often selective. School books have sometimes presented Scotland as culturally homogenous, but in reality, Scotland has always been more diverse than that. These pioneers are proof. People of African and Caribbean heritage were shaping Scottish society long before modern debates around immigration. By remembering Joseph Knight, James McCune Smith, Andrew Watson, and so many others, we enrich our understanding of who counts in history. We see Scotland not as an island apart from the world, but as part of a global web of movement, culture, empire, and resistance. The stories of Scotland's Black pioneers matter. They show courage in the face of injustice, brilliance in the world of science and sport, and creativity in art and music. They're not just add-ons to Scottish history, they're central threads in the fabric of Scotland's story. And although I am discussing Black Scots stories here, you should go and follow the thousands of Black Scots creating content and telling you their stories directly. In the next episode, we'll move into one of the most surprising historical connections, the hidden stories of Black Jacobites. Yes, Black men and women caught up in Scotland's legendary uprisings. Thanks for listening or watching. Remember to like, follow and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Scottish English podcast.